Hey, listener, if you would like to promote your Etsy shop or your brand on the podcast by doing a giveaway, please get in touch with me. I put a lot of effort into the giveaways. I do a lot of promotion for your brand and your Etsy shop, both on the blog and in social media, and I'll also be promoting it right here on the podcast too. So if this is of any interest to you and you'd like to partner with me to help promote your Etsy shop or your creative business or your brand, please email me at interview@convome.com, or you can simply go to convome.com and use the contact form to connect with me.
Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, good new week to you. This is Ijama. I'm your host for the Etsy Conversations podcast. Thank you for joining me. And this week, my guest is Sophia. Sophia runs the Etsy shop, Sophia Pagan Photography. And Sophia, thank you for being my guest and welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, good. Glad. Sophia, can you briefly give us an introduction about yourself? Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I was born and raised there. I did my studies in graphic arts and went on to work in magazine publishing for a couple of years, worked with a few well-known magazine titles like Real Simple and Vogue and a couple of other impressive ones, or maybe not so impressive anymore. But I moved to Paris about 6 years ago when the economy in New York really fell. Since I was working in magazine publishing, a lot of the publishing houses were losing advertisers. Just, people weren't buying magazines and there were mass layoffs. And then there was the Lehman Brothers thing, and it was just a bad time to be in New York. So I decided it was a good time to skip town and, try a new adventure. So I came to Paris, and I've been working as a freelance photographer here ever since. I've had 6 exhibits here in Paris. I do a few different types of photography, but my personal and kind of the work that I'm most proud of is my fine art black and white work.
Sophia, that sounds so exotic. I don't know if you know how exotic that sounds. Like, well, things weren't going so well in America. I had worked for these glossy print magazines, and then I took off to Paris.
Yeah.
That's like a book. That's like a story.
Maybe, who knows?
Now, why did you pick Paris?
I don't really know, to be honest. I came to Paris for the first time when I kind of graduated college. It was a birthday/graduation gift for myself. And as soon as I got off the plane, I just felt this connection. Like I was at home immediately in this place that I had never been.
Wow.
And I was there for 12 days, and I was out the hotel 8 o'clock, back every night by 10:30. I just could not get enough of the city. And actually on the plane ride home, I was crying. Like I just never felt anything like it. So it just was this calling. And I didn't immediately have kind of a straight plan on how to get to Paris. It actually took me about 3 years to figure it out. And I can't even say that I figured it out. I really didn't like my life at the time. Nothing seemed to going right. I hated my job. And I kind of woke up one day and realized like I had this good on paper life, but I hated it, and I wanted a good in real life. So one really just horrible day at work, horrible. I literally bought a one-way ticket on my lunch break, and that was it.
You bought your ticket on your lunch break?
A one-way ticket.
You're kidding.
Yeah. And I haven't gone back to the States once, actually. So 6 years, I haven't gone back yet.
That's even more dramatic.
Yeah. It was both a good way and a bad way to do it. I mean, I didn't speak the language. I didn't have a job, a place to live, anything. But my ticket was for 3 months after I bought it. And kind of maybe serendipitously, everything just kind of fell in place. And, I guess it's worked out. I've been here 6 years now, so it's still working out.
Well, how easy was it for you to assimilate into French society or Parisian society?
for me, I don't think it was that difficult. Being born and raised in New York, in Brooklyn, it's, such a busy city. I understood the way the city works. I understood the people, I understood everyone being kind of miserable wearing black in the morning and, not liking tourists so much and, living and dying by the metro. I just understood it, and for me, it's actually a kind of calmer version of New York because nothing closes in New York. It's 24/7. It's stress, high rewards. But it's different here. It's still a metropolitan city, but, you can spend 2 hours at a cafe and not have a, waiter or waitress try to rush you out for the next client. And, it's just calmer. So, I understood the base of the city, I guess, the characteristic of it. So in that sense, I could navigate it well. My biggest barrier was, of course, the language, which took a while to pick up, but they say, immersion is the best way. And for me, it really was. When you're forced to learn a foreign language, you do pick it up. So,
now,
yeah.
how long did it take for you to get fluent in French?
Well, when I first came here, I took intensive French lessons at the Sorbonne, and I did 3 semesters of that. And I particularly found their curriculum good because they had a phonetics course. So they taught you how to change your lips and place your tongue in to make those sounds. So that was really beneficial. And, within 3 months, I can order certain things at the cafe. I could get around. And I would say about after a year and a half, I can do a little bit more advanced things, maybe do some banking. But now, yeah, I'm pretty fluent.
And ever since you got to Paris, have you been self-employed?
Yeah. Well, I kind of had a couple of, it's all been freelancer work. I've never had kind of an office job. I mean, after New York, I knew I could never be in an office again. That just wasn't for me. But yeah, it's all been freelance work.
Sounds like New York scarred you.
Sometimes I like to think that New York is the city that made me and Paris is the city that saved me.
Oh, nice.
So I don't think it scarred me. I think it prepared me for a lot of things.
Okay. Now, in Paris, or I should say in France, do they have the same type of work restrictions that exist in the U.S., where if you're not a citizen, you can't really earn until you get certain paperwork in place?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a foreigner in any country, you have to be prepared to be a foreigner in that country. It's just how it is. Now, there's certain visas, depending on the visas you get, that you have the right to work and the right not to work. But the visa that I came in on, I had the right to work. And after being here, you change the visa and you still continue the right to work. And here in France, they have something called a l'auto-entrepreneur, which is called, freelancers kind of contract, I guess. Okay. So that's what I'm on. So just a self-employed thing.
Wow. Okay. We've almost spent close to 10 minutes talking about your move to Paris, but I think it's fantastic that you made a decision, you followed it, and you made it work, and you're making it work. I think so many of us dream of doing something like that, just following our hearts and living and enjoying the life we live. And, it's just nice to hear someone who's doing it and made it work. I'm sure it wasn't easy in the beginning, but it seems like it was worth it right now.
Absolutely. It was definitely worth it. I mean, I'm the type of person who can learn by other people's kind of mistakes, I guess. And I was just in a work office every single day with people who were just miserable all the time with their lives. And I was just looking at it like, this is going to be me in 20 years and 30 years and 40 years. And then with the layoffs and things like that, people who've been in the company for decades just getting laid off like it was nothing. And it just wasn't for me. I do think you have to have a certain personality to be able to deal with all the office politics and everything that just goes with working in corporations. And I just wasn't that person, you know. I couldn't be creative at a gray desk every day and sit around unhappy people and, you know, not kind of take on that energy myself. You know, I needed fresh air and change and scenery. You know, I was just an artist, and I just felt like I was being stifled.
Wow. Well, kudos to you for doing it. And I'm really excited to hear about your journey now. So moving on to Etsy, you've been on Etsy since 2011, but you haven't actively been selling on Etsy because you've been doing a lot of gallery work or selling your art the traditional way. What made you decide to move to Etsy? And can you compare the two, selling art traditionally and then now selling it selling it online?
Well, I've always been an early adopter to new platforms, so I knew about Etsy early on, and I signed up for it right away. But when I did, I really didn't have a vision of how I could utilize it. So that's pretty much why it stayed there dormant for so long. And it's only kind of within the past couple of months that I figured out kind of a marketing plan and how to make a workflow for Etsy that works for me. And I find it to be a lot easier. I mean, the galleries has its ups and its downs. I mean, it always sounds kind of glamorous having an expo and, you know, show opening and being able to talk to people one-on-one about your work is always this, you know, heartwarming and a wonderful experience. But there's a lot of cost to it. You have to, and it's not the same everywhere, but here in Paris, you have to rent the gallery space. Depending on the gallery, they'll take a percentage or they won't. So the profit can, you know, if you're lucky, you kind of equal out. So that was the difficult part. And then advertising, it's a lot of work and preparing for the opening party and getting caterers and, you know, all the things that go into it. Just for a week. And then if you're not having an exhibit, it's difficult to sell because there's no other real way to promote your work if, you know, they're not seeing it in person. So what I like with Etsy, I mean, I have found that definitely you get what you put in to Etsy, and you have to kind of spend a little time every single day to kind of get eyes on it and, you know, grow your business. But it's at a more manageable pace. It's not something that, you know, I have to pack into 1 week and spend hours making, you know, frames and preparing things to sell. And then, you know, if they don't sell, I'm just kind of stuck with all this artwork, which is never fun because then you have to store it and do all those things. So that's what I find a lot better with Etsy. Not to mention that you get more eyes.
Yeah. Now, when you're selling in person, I didn't realize that you're the one that has to find the gallery and organize everything that goes into it. I always just assumed that the gallery was owned by maybe an art collector and they would invite the artist to display their art and then have people come and look at it and then people would buy what they liked.
It's not the same everywhere. I mean, in the States, well, I won't even say in the States, but in New York, it's more like that. If you find a gallery to represent you, they'll do the marketing for you and kind of take the cost for preparing the frames and, you know, doing the startup work, and they'll take a commission from the sales. Mm-hmm. Here in Europe, it doesn't really work that way. In Paris, you don't really have galleries that represent your work per se. It's more just like an area that you just rent. Okay. Like a space you just rent for an event for the most part.
Do you do things like craft fairs or no? That's not part of your mix?
Well, I did one, what they have here around this time are Christmas markets. So I did a Christmas market 1 year. And it didn't really work that well for me. I think that what people wanted were things that were a little bit cheaper than what I was selling.
I was going to say lower end. It's okay. You can say that.
Offend anyone's work.
No, I know. Yeah. Okay.
Because my work is limited edition, fine print, and things like that. So they sell for hire. It's good to interact with people, talk to them and hear insights. But I didn't really sell much.
Okay. And to be specific, you sell fine art photography prints.
Yes.
Okay. And you take all the photos yourself?
Yeah, every single one.
Okay. What inspires you? Like, when you see something, what makes you say that is going to make a print that would look great on someone's wall?
Well, it's not just the picture. The picture for me is only half the work, capturing a photo. I think when I really bring it into the post process and work on it and edit the images, that I kind of put my own touch to it. So I'm really kind of drawn to silent and still scenes, kind of single people, architecture I like a lot. There's kind of little interesting things. I don't do a lot of kind of big grandiose images. It's usually kind of a single focus, I guess you can say. Like you'll see there's a person walking down a lonely street and things like that. So I'm just kind of drawn to the mystery that comes with it, like what that person's thinking, where they're going, and all those things that have you go that way.
Okay.
But, Paris is such a picturesque city. I mean, there's almost a photo everywhere you go if you're willing to look for it. So that's one thing. Paris really does inspire my work.
So you're always with your camera?
I won't say always, about 90% of the time.
Okay.
I do try to take it with me, as much as possible. If I know and I love walking, so I walk a lot. So I definitely take it with me when I just kind of go walking to kind of breathe the fresh air.
Okay. Now, is what you're doing on Etsy part of what you consider your freelance photography, or is that a whole different thing that you do in addition to selling on Etsy?
I consider it something different. I mean, my photography has a lot of kind of different profit outlets. And I think Etsy it's when it is within its own. I do think some of the prints that I can sell on Etsy probably won't necessarily be part of my fine art series. But they make, beautiful prints for home decor and things like that, and gifts for housewarming, anniversaries and things like that.
Okay. So since everything you do is art, do you find that you sometimes segment where you're spending time? Well, because, with Etsy, you'll have some administrative tasks to do, like putting the listings up, writing up the product descriptions and whatnot. Do you find that you have to divide your time between that and the other art related work that you do, or is it just all one for you?
Definitely, it is definitely different. The kind of packaging and marketing that go into Etsy are unique than anything else that I have to do. So some of the other work that I do, for instance, is portrait photography. So couples visiting Paris, we take a 3-hour walk and we do some shooting around the city with the scenery. And that's just a totally different kind of marketing plan for that. But the thing with Etsy, I can go back into my photo archives and pull out some images that I haven't used and just work on that in my spare time. So yeah, so I think that's where the difference is.
Okay. Now, do you ever look at other Etsy shops of people who sell fine art prints as well?
Yeah, I've checked out some other people.
Okay. When you look at them, at those, like, what do you get most out of making comparisons between them and what you're doing?
Well, I think everyone has their own kind of marketing plan in mind. So I don't think you can kind of directly take anything from it, but you can kind of borrow and maybe build off of it. And I see it seems to kind of be a theme the way with how fine art photographers are kind of branding their images, kind of showing it in a room already, making it feel like it, this print can immediately be part of your home and, warm it up. And I think that's kind of starting to be a trend that I'm seeing. And then kind of other ideas of maybe other things that I could sell. Like I thought about making calendars, and I decided not to. But, it's interesting to see other photographers doing that and making it work.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, I thought that was unique. On your site, you have almost all your prints hanging above a white couch chair against a white wall, and it's just very distinct. It's like, even though you see the decor around it, the picture is what stands out.
Yeah, I tried to choose the background that felt inviting, but it didn't distract from the image as well.
Yeah,
and try to make it more uniform, just so it kind of gives you a feeling of a brand.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about promoting your Etsy shop. So you've done it in person before, your artwork, that is. How do you promote your Etsy shop? What are you doing to get traffic to your store, to generate excitement around your products?
Well, so this is a lot different marketing. For my exhibits, it was kind of all local marketing, but this is all digital marketing. So I utilize Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest. I have a couple of tools that help me kind of automate postings. Hashtags seem to be pretty useful. I haven't started using Instagram yet, although I have formatted my images to start using on Instagram as well.
Okay. I'm sorry, you said you use automated listing tools?
Yeah.
Is that for listing on Etsy or listing on social media?
For listing on social media sites.
Okay. Now, of the social media sites that you're on, which one do you feel that you get the most return for the time you invest in it on?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I really have enough kind of data to judge that correctly, but if I had to choose one, I would say it would probably be Facebook right now. Okay. And that's only because I have multiple Facebook pages, so I can kind of across the board have more people to market to. But Twitter, uses the hashtag, so anyone who signs up for the hashtag, Etsy, they can see what's coming in new. Same with kind of works the same way with Pinterest. So that kind of generates on itself because people repin things. So I think any social network will work fine. It's just the one that you kind of put the time into,
right, will
kind of work best for you.
Okay. Now, you also are, and before I move on, just to let everyone know, I'm going to have all the links to Sophia's, her Etsy shop, all her social media accounts, in the show notes of this episode. So just go to convome.com/Sophia Pagan and you will find them all there. Now, Sophia, you also have a website.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about your website. What do you do on your website? What's the main goal with your website? And it's sophiapagan.com. I'll also have links to that in the show notes.
Yes. It's mostly just showcasing my fine artwork. I have a blog, and my blog is interesting. It kind of goes in depth about how I shot a particular image and what I was thinking and my editing process at the end. So it's pretty much just a portfolio of my fine artwork. I do have kind of a mini gallery. On the bottom, it says shop, and that's kind of just a mini gallery of my Etsy images. So people can find my Etsy store through my website as well.
Okay. Now, when you get a new print that you want to sell on Etsy and the intention is to sell it on Etsy, what's your average turnaround time from when you take the photo to actually having it up and listed on Etsy? I noticed that you frame all your prints in your listings. So that must take some time to get done.
No, not really. I mean, I'm kind of right now working for my archives. I'm not putting any new images on Etsy just yet, like, images I'm currently taking. So, I've pretty much kind of automated the process where, have the images that are ready, and I just kind of put them into the room scene for Etsy, and then I can put it up. So it takes, I would say 10 to 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Per image to get, because I have 4 different room settings. Well, 3 room settings, and then there's a close-up of a frame, so they can see details. And I've already kind of saved the text that goes into everything, and I just copy and paste it from there. So it goes pretty fast, but it took me a while to set up the automation process. I tell you, that's one thing I did learn. It's worth taking the time to really think it through and set it up correctly, so everything just flows quickly afterwards.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Thanks for sharing that. Setting up processes. Processes are always good.
Yeah, I have a whole workflow for Etsy that I use. And it saves me tons and tons of time. Not that I, sat down and thought out exactly what needs to be done in what order and, what best way to do it. It saved me tons of time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm kind of, this is not to say that you are either, but I need lists, and I need, a system in place. And with the podcast, especially, I have a whole process that I go through with each one. So I make sure I don't miss anything, because it's so easy to miss a step. And it took a long time to actually create the process, make sure I included every step. But now it makes things just go much smoother, because I just look at my list of things I need to do and, go down the list, and it's a time saver. So if you're selling on Etsy or doing anything where you have to repeat often, then put systems in place.
Absolutely. I actually went through that, and for all my kind of profit outlets or marketing outlets, I have a workflow in place, and I just took a week and I kind of brainstormed everything that I had to do. And when I saw the paper, I was just amazed. I was like, this is what I'm keeping in my head. No wonder everything's taking so long.
Yeah, I had the same revelation too when it finally occurred to me too, because I would sit down and think, okay, what do I need to do next? Okay, then what do I need to do next? And then finally I was like, okay, I need to write this all down, because I'm going to go on vacation one day, I'm going to come back, and then I'm not going to remember anything I did. And when I wrote it all down, I thought, whoa, that is a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I was surprised. There's this, I couldn't even imagine how I was doing it before, to be honest.
Yeah. So because a lot of what you do revolves around your photography, do you ever find that sometimes you still get in a creative rut, or are the creative juices just constantly flowing?
The thing about photography, I don't know. For me personally, I think it's difficult to get into a rut, because like if I'm stuck creatively, I'll probably just walk outside and kind of clear my head, take my camera when I do that, and I'll find 100 things to photograph. Photography is all about how you see things, and you can have 5 people look at the same vase and all take an image of it, and they'll all be different and unique. I think mostly for me, if I do have problems taking photography, it's mostly based on an emotional block or something, stress and stuff like that's happening, where I just feel like I can't even touch my camera. Because for me, it's kind of really an emotional outlet. So if I have a lot going on, or I'm just stressed or whatever, I won't even be able to touch my camera. So that'll be my kind of artistic block. So until I kind of work through that, I won't be able to take any images.
I meant to ask you this, or it just occurred to me now, rather. When you left New York for Paris, did you leave with the intention of becoming a full-time photographer?
Actually, no. I left with the intention of becoming a full-time retoucher. It was funny. I used to think I started on the wrong side of the camera, but because I work in magazine publishing, but I work specifically with the images and the contracts for the international publications. So, it would be like real simple Japan or something like that, and I would help them fulfill the image requests that they wanted for that specific month. So I worked closely with illustrators and photographers and photo editors, and it was kind of the same when I moved over to the second publishing house. And when I was in college, university, I really wanted to do retouching, and I loved Photoshop. So when I came here, I said, I'm going to be a full-time retoucher. But then I realized I needed quality images to kind of practice on. So I was like, well, I'm just going to go out and take pictures. And then kind of fell on to photography from there.
Wow. I didn't even know that was a thing, full-time retoucher.
Oh, yeah. There's huge houses in New York, and that's all they do. And it was fun, interesting working in magazine publishing because I got to see a lot of before and after images of a lot of famous people. And it'll make you feel really good about yourself.
Yeah, I just wish they would show more of the real pictures.
Some of it was just like, I was like, it was a real shocker for me. I would see some people, and I just couldn't believe it. Some people like I kind of grew up with, and I look at them on TV, and you think they're kind of like forever young. And you see the before picture, and it's like, wow, they are not that young at all.
Wow. Yeah. But that's a whole different issue. We won't get into it. Now, when you decided to come back onto Etsy and give it another chance, what are some things that you did this time around to set yourself up to be more successful selling on Etsy?
Well, that was a real shift for me. Like I had maybe a mini epiphany when I came back to Etsy, because when I originally opened the store, in my head, for some reason, I thought I had to prepare the images exactly like I would for one of my exhibits. And it takes so much time preparing the print, printing them, putting them in mats, framing them. I thought that I would have to kind of individually photograph each one, and just the time process, I just couldn't kind of get past that. When I came back to it this time, it's actually after talking to one of my good friends in New York, and he was just telling me about something I can't even specifically put my finger on right now. But all of a sudden I was like, well, I don't have to do that. I have Photoshop. I can, manipulate the images, make it look like it's in a room, and automate this entire process. I don't have to sit here and photograph each piece of artwork and have kind of a little, product photography studio in my home. For what I'm doing, at least. So once I kind of got past that and realized there was a different workflow and a different way that I can market these images that was quicker and more streamlined, it kind of changed everything for me.
Okay. So again, it goes back to putting processes in place to just make the whole process easier.
Yeah, and another thing that I didn't want to do, I didn't want to have kind of a stockpile of products in my home, hoping that they sell, because that's kind of what happens with the fine art world. But this is made on demand, so when somebody puts in an order, I create it and I can send it, so I don't have to have a stockpile waiting in my house, which is great.
Oh, nice. So Sophia, all right, so let's say there's someone who's listening that's in the same situation you found yourself in. They've given Etsy a try in the past, and maybe things just didn't work out the way they wanted to. And now they're thinking of giving Etsy another try, another go around. What advice do you have for that person?
I would say do your research. I'm definitely a person who likes to learn to, see what else everyone is doing, and kind of maybe take online classes. And unfortunately, I didn't find much about Etsy, but kind of going through and looking at the other people and seeing how they're marketing themselves. And this podcast is actually a great resource as well. There's been people on who've been given amazing advice for getting started that I've been able to use. And then really stop and think about the best process to market yourself and be honest with the amount of time you have to put into it. I think, Etsy definitely takes time. You have to be able to work on it every single day. And if you can't give that time commitment, you probably won't see the results that you want anytime soon. And at the same time, you have to be able to think about how to make the products and, just how it will fit into your life in general.
Okay. Now, what's one thing, or it doesn't have to just be one thing, but if there's something that you want to leave the listener with about you or your craft or your Etsy shop, what's that one thing you want them to know?
I think I want them to know that, this is definitely a work of passion and a work of love. Every time I make a print and I send it out, I always imagine it, being hung and looked at and bringing a smile to someone's face every single day. And, I think if you, come from this place of giving and, hoping to bring joy, that's a better way to look at it than just kind of for the profits and for the money. So I really believe that if you do what you love, the money will come. But if you only focus on the money, it can take a long time.
Great. Thank you. Now, Sophia, what's the best way people can reach you if they want to get in touch with you?
My website is the best way. So it's sophiapagan.com, SOPHIAPAGAN.com. I'm also on Facebook under Sophia Pagan as well. Twitter for Sophia Pagan. I'm everywhere. Pinterest, Sophia Pagan, and Instagram, Sophia Pagan. So social media is a great way to reach out to me too. I try to really interact with everyone who interacts with me. I'm grateful for every follower and every like, and I try to kind of encourage that as much as possible.
I think you've cornered the market on Sophia Pagan.
That's something else to being an early adopter.
Yes, very good. Sophia, thank you so much for being my guest and for sharing your story. I think it's inspiring that you decided to follow your heart and you're making it work. I think people will enjoy hearing this story about you.
Great, thanks. So I enjoyed this conversation and I love the podcast. I really think you've had some great people on, and I'm learning a lot by listening to kind of the old podcasts and the new ones as well. So I really think it's a great thing that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Sophia. And thank you for listening this week. I will be back next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.